given the direction of The Drop, which is based on a Dennis Lehane story. And now there's a link with what you just said about Martin Scorsese, because Dennis Lehane wrote the story on which Shutter Island was made by Scorsese. He also wrote Mystic River for Clint Eastwood. And it's set in Brooklyn, and you filmed on location in Brooklyn, right, with those very maneuverable Arriflex, what's the name of the cameras, the special cameras you used,
sorry, I forgot the mic. We had these wonderful lenses. The first series that came out at the time was the Sumilux of Leica. And then it was my first digital work as well, because Bullhead was still shot on film stock.
But what a contrast to jump from Limburg to Brooklyn in a different language, directing actors in English.
I think it wasn't that big of a contrast, actually. It might seem kind of strange, but I used to live by the time already for 20. I live in Brussels since I started studying here like more than 20 years ago. And Brooklyn has still a very strong European touch to it. It's filled with Polish people, Italian, of course also Russian, Irish. It's very continental European feel to it.
Multi.
Yes, yeah. And it is very. And also, what I discovered is that the motto of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So we have the flag and then, the mayor's house, and there's like a motto. It's the same as Belgium.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Old Dutch, Eendracht maakt macht. So I was walking around in Brooklyn, and we were like going to some official place, and I was like, oh, the Brooklyn. I was like, wait, this is Dutch. And they're like, what? Yeah. And then the Americans with me, they're like, can you translate? I said, of course. It says, united we stand. Like, wow. I said, how do you know? It's Dutch. So, and Brooklyn is originally Breukelen, apparently, that's where it comes from. It's an old, it used to have a Dutch name as a place. So, it was very, also with the Catholic background, and Dennis and Lehane and me, what is your education? It is culture, and it's the culture you consume. And I live, of course, I was raised within a Belgian culture, but our culture has been determined very strongly by English movies. I think that 90% or 80% of the films that I watched till today even are English speaking and mostly American.
I was going to ask, actually, when you were young, was there one or two films that left a deep impression on you and made you feel one day I want to be a filmmaker? Raging Bull, maybe?
Yes, Raging Bull, absolutely. But I think these movies just made an impression. The making of the idea of like this decision, I'm going to be a movie maker, I was much more convinced when as a teenager and a young man, that I was going to become a graphic novelist, because I studied painting, and that was in the back of my head was like, it was a constant evolution, 15, 16, I want to be, making comic strips, like we said, not the comics in American, but more, the European, like Tintin, Then I discovered the graphic novel. I said, wow, this is like something, I'm going to be a graphic novelist. Then I went to art school, studied graphic design, because we didn't have a program for graphic novels and comics. So, and then I discovered more and more contemporary art, and painters and Bacon and Luc Tuymans and
Lucian Freud,
and and I'm like, no, I'm going to be a painter, and I made a constant evolution even through my 20s, because then at the end of my when I got graduated, we had to write a thesis, and I started to write short stories, and then I said I'm going to be a writer. So I actually wrote a novel once when I was 24 or something, and I never realized that I wanted to do so many things. I was always trying, when I was doing the graphic novel, the drawing, I wanted to write, and when I was writing, I wanted to do photography. Now I want to do video. I made experimental videos, did little exhibitions, and I was always like going in circles until I realized if I want to do all these things at the same time, I got to make movies. Then I can actually draw because I do my own storyboards. I can write. I love to work with people. And it's music, everything. It is all of a sudden. It is like I feel as a director that I'm like the conductor of an orchestra that's filled with all the arts of the world. And I can like, yeah.
And if someone said to me, Bullhead, like a Rorschach test, one word, what's your reaction? I would say imagery. And I think the imagery is driven by that deep fascination you have for painting and the visual arts. I think that really drives a lot of your work. When you went to the Maurits Binder Institute to study film in Amsterdam, I think it's interesting that you graduated, if I'm right, in script writing, not in direction. And script writing is at the core, isn't it, of everything. And so often we see films, unfortunately, all too many European films, where the script has not been really well worked out, and they've started shooting before they have a really good script. How did you go about polishing and getting the script of Bullhead just to the right stage before you shot?
First of all, I do agree with you. It is a movie is a good story well told, or a book is the same. Without a good story, you're nowhere. So it starts with that, and then telling it well has different stages, and the most important one that will determine every echo of your decisions is the script. And it's true. I think sometimes people work very hard to get their first, and it's maybe to do a little bit with our tradition of and our culture of financing our films. We go through stages where sometimes it is an advantage, and in my case, the advantage was that half of the time I was still in a learning process. So it took me a long time to get money. So in the meantime, I only had nothing else to do than to rewrite the script, which became actually the advantage at the end. I see very often, and even today, even I have to protect myself because I have made 2 films. I know more, I'm a little faster in delivering some kind of quality. That sometimes I already get some financing, and actually I should say myself, like, it's not ready yet. Actually, I shouldn't get it right now. But of course, there's a speed, there's an urgency, and also, of course, you also need the deadline, because if you just keep writing, 10 years from now, you'd still be working. So you need also to finish at some point. That balance is very important, and I think because the process, for instance, we have a story, a treatment. We make a first version. We get some maybe support for the script to develop, and then the producer, who's very eager to get going, find the money, and then at some point you already start to, especially the directors who also write their own stuff, they start to already become the director while they should remain a little bit longer the script writer. But you're forced by this. It's not a bad thing. It's just being conscious about it is more than it takes.
Do you
That's
work
all
with
it takes. I mean, to realize that script writing sometimes just let the director side be and stay a little longer a script writer, because it will come when it.
Do you do it entirely on your own, or do you usually work with a partner, a writing partner?
I have no Bullhead. I wrote myself, but I had a lot of support and consultancy to it. The Drop was written by Lehane. My next movie, Le Fidèle, is my story. I wrote the first version, but then I went back and forth in versions with Thomas Biedgen.
And that's set in Brussels, isn't it? It's a gangster movie set in Brussels.
Yes, it's a love story, but a criminal kind of love story. And Thomas Biedgen, who's the collaborator of Jacques Audiard, he co-wrote A Prophet and Rust and Bones. He collaborated with me kind of the same way that he works with Jacques. Like, it's my story, I'm not the term, and he helps me because structure is one of my. I suffer so much when it comes to structure. It's not my best. It's hard working there, and I need help when it comes to that. Yeah.
They used to say that the Polish cinema, in this great period of people like Wajda and Zanussi and Skolimowski and so on, it was good because they had to make short films before they had any chance of getting funding for a feature. Now, you have actually followed that. You made short films before you came to Bullhead. Looking back, has that been valuable for you?
Absolutely, and I was very conscious at the time because my last short film, that is, I think it's a kind of a weird film, but I made 4 shorts, and I started developing Bullhead after 2. I started writing my first version of the script. Then I came back from Binger in 5, made another short, and in 7 I made another short because I felt, because of Bullhead, what I was writing, that I've never directed people talking heads, like around a table. And I found a story by Hemingway where 4 guys were talking on a table, and I decided to make that as a short film first, as an exercise, like how can you have an exciting conversation. So that was for me like a test, and to learn, to be prepared for my table conversations with our 2 ones in Bullhead. Yeah. And I wanted to try things out. So, and I'm a strong believer in making short films. It's like an EP, and then you make a full album, something like that.
And we're celebrating the 25 years of media. Has it been helpful to you? Has media invested or helped your films as they've gone along?
Yes, I believe so. I must say I'm a director, and I have a very good producer working with me, and I think he is very happy with all the means that we have in Europe to finance, and I know this is a very it's an asset. It's a contribution to our movie making, definitely.
Particularly, I think, in smaller countries or smaller language areas, that's where media can really help, because the French and the Italians can get along on their own. But
absolutely, the smaller countries always have more difficulties in financing their movies, because basically, Bullhead is not more expensive to make in France than it would be in Belgium. Maybe it is. You have some unions. Maybe, I don't know. There might be some practicalities that will make it a little bit more expensive. But basically, but then if you look at the percentage of the amount of people that will come and watch a certain film is the same, but the exact numbers is then much bigger in France than it is in Flanders. So we can have all this support, especially when it is funding and it's not investment, because an investment needs return. Yeah. And a funding is happy when there is a kind of a return, but it's not a necessity in a way. It is to help. And it's this consciousness of that smaller countries need this funding in order to have a film tradition and to develop one. Is very important. It cannot be missed. Well,
in the first panel this morning, somebody said that here in Belgium, or including Holland, I think, we don't have the real know-how to produce very, very sophisticated special effects. Now, when you make a film like Bullhead, or now you've made the new film in Brussels, are you conscious of the difference in technical facilities compared with when you made The Drop in the United States?
I must say the Drop was not much of a challenge on the special effects side. So it was of course,
I mean,
Hollywood
the crew,
film.
the big crew, the professionalism of the crew, the experience that you have from Hollywood. Somehow, people often say that's what we haven't got here. But do you think there is that in Belgium? You can assemble a crew that you know is going to be absolutely top notch.
Yes, absolutely. But our crews are smaller because of budget and because of regulations. And in America, we, like for instance, we always think about, you know, the big American crews, but that's only when we talk about union-supported movie making. Yeah. If we talk about Hollywood, but there is, for every movie in Hollywood, there are probably maybe 2-3 independent movies.
All the Sundance pictures.
Yeah, and their crews are maybe even sometimes smaller than the ones that I had for Bullhead. So it's all, it's financing, it's money, it's rules, regulations that determine. But as a quality, our crews are very, very good. They're not. There's no difference in the contrary, I think. They're very flexible. They can multitask. They do a lot of. They have to, because putting a cable in a plug is the same guy who's like doing this with the light. In America, it's impossible. There's only one guy to plug, and then the other guy is. And it's like more like a strong, heavy engine. They work to. The unions are actually basically created to. Because movie making is a very stressful job, and it can be very stressful for everybody, and very tiring, exhausting. And in order to save the workers and make sure that they have a career for 40 years, they separate these jobs and make it kind of livable for them, because otherwise there would be, you know, deals made, and they have to do so many jobs, and they would burn. Like in 10 years, it would be done. Sure. And like here, we're like light, flexible, but sometimes it's very stressful for our crews to work this way.
But the technical side obviously means a lot to you. I noticed that you filmed both Bullhead and The Drop in scope, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Have you shot the new film in scope too?
Yes.
And why do you choose that? Why do you go against someone like Steven Spielberg, who said you've got to have the 1:185, you know, to get a really concentrated image? But you obviously like the landscape look that certainly for Bullhead it worked very well.
Yeah, for Bullhead it worked very well. I think it worked also for The Drop. I've been thinking about it, and I used it again now for Le Fidèle. Again, it's the scope format. Although there's not much landscaping in it anymore. It's a little different. It's the city. But it was a nice format to fit the cars in it.
Yes. Yeah.
Cars are important.
But for years, television refused to show. They would pan and scan for every film that was made in scope. That's less so now. I think that television, more and more cable channels are showing films in their original ratio, which is good for filmmaking.
Yes, that's especially also with the video-on-demand things. But they're still kind of doing it on the 69, the Steven Spielberg format. And I'm still. Sometimes I'm wondering, maybe one day, maybe I would change it. I don't know.
And do you do painting in private life still? Do you still a Sunday painter?
No, I haven't painted for a long. No, maybe one day I will go back to painting. But
you mentioned storyboards. You do your own.
That's not really painting. No, it's more like sketching, and, you know, and having fun with the pencil. And but the real painting, like the ones I did when I was still at school, no, I don't really miss it either. I don't think I'm a very good one. I mean, I never tried. I will never be a real painter, because I just love telling a story that starts with, you know, once upon a time. And then, and a painting is a different kind of telling. It's not my. I always miss something. Not when I look at a painting. A beautiful painting, I can. Then I'm in awe, like, wow. But making that, I will be like, maybe I need another painting on the left and one on the right, so then you know that. And then I'm making a graphic novel, and then I need noise and sound. Okay, just let's make a movie out of it.
We talked a little about the difference between Hollywood or American filmmaking and filmmaking here in Belgium. What about television? Because you've done some episodes at Berlin Station, I think, and you've worked in television. What's the essential difference for you shooting TV and shooting for films?
It's okay. Give me 1 second.
You have to work much faster, don't you?
It's much faster on set. Much faster. You're much more And then it depends if I was lucky or happy to do the pilot and the second episode. So you kind of have a lot of creation work to do in pre-production, not just organizing and do some additional casting. No, you really have to, okay, what kind of a visual style, art directing, production design, music, all these things. If you're not original television format as a creator, a showrunner, and a pilot director, which is a different setup as the one for movie making.
Sure.
You're a little bit more a gun for hire, so to speak. You collaborate closely in equal ways with the creator, but he basically has the last word. The creator, depending a little bit if he's also the showrunner, is kind of the director of everything, also the directors. And there are many directors to direct a season. Lately, they start to apply the movie making concept to television, for instance, True Detective, one director, one writer, and they had it was more like a 10-hour movie show, actually. So for me, but I wanted to do it because I was very attracted to the concept of the. It was in Berlin. For me, doing television this way was for me a preparation to do my own series. I got to see how does it work, what's the creator doing, how's the showrunner doing, how does am I going to direct? If I work with other directors, how I'm going to direct them, and what's the part of the executive producers. The studio, the cable, the network, it's big. The table of a movie maker's table could be, let's say, 3 people, director, producer, and maybe, let's say, a studio. And even then, TV is much more complex. In the States, here we start to adapt in Flanders and a little bit more to that concept of a showrunner. Director, several directors, the part of the network who's financing mostly. But it's different and much faster. Yeah, the sets are. Yeah, I had like nice ideas, and then we can like and then you come on the set, and they're like, well, if you do this, day's over. I'm like, well, okay, let's forget about it. And it's screened. People nowadays, they watch it on small screens, so you can't really.
Well, clearly you've been able to combine that television and film in the way that Paolo Sorrentino has just made The Young Pope, a 10-hour series, for example, and then goes back to making a feature film. So I'm sure that will be the same for you in the future. You'll probably be making feature films, but also from time to time doing TV.
Yes, I hope so. I'm developing a series. That I want to direct. Maybe I will do everything. Maybe I'll have another director on the side and a good writers team. But yeah, I think it's basically. I like to see myself a movie maker as a storyteller, and the movie makers. I see it as a movie maker's team. The producer and that's something I discovered as well. That in Hollywood, the producer is also a movie maker, in a way. He makes the movie with you. I think I lost track. What was I saying?
I think it's a good note. We're running out of time.
Oh,
so it's a good note.
Yes, I was getting there, and then I didn't get back. Sorry.
It was very, very nice of you to spare the time, Michael. We really appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck when the new film comes out.
Thank you.
And hope to see you again next year with another film, maybe.
Yes, next year, hopefully. Thank you. Thank you.
In one word, what does European film mean to you?
That's a fucking good question.
Culture.
Not American.
Passion.
Complexity.
Honesty.
European film means to me diversity.
Possibility to do anything I would like to do.
Passion.
Today would be hope.
Mix all the cultures together.
This is a film with a national identity. This is what we always said.
C'est un cinéma de film unique.
I can travel through the film to a lot of countries, to all those cultural diversity we have.
In one word.
It means a lot to me.
It's what makes me feel alive.
Not predictable.
Culture. It's one word.
We all love stories.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. My name is Wendy Mitchell. I'm a contributing editor at Screen International and also a film program manager at the British Council, where I look after our festivals programs. So I'm delighted to be here talking about festivals with some great experts. You will see that we've got four panelists on stage instead of just two, so we're really grateful for that. Dieter Koslik from the Berlinale has the flu, if we're wondering why he's not here. He didn't blow us off. He's not well, but he'll be better back fighting for February, we trust. Yes. So I'll introduce the panel quickly. We have Rikke Ennis from Trust Nordisk, the CEO there. We have Bero Beyer from the International Film Festival Rotterdam. He's the general and artistic director. Matthias Volter-Knoll, who is the director of the European Film Market in Berlin. And then Frederic Bereziat from Unifrance, who's the deputy managing director at Unifrance. So I wanted to start with a very simple, but kind of the big question now is, when we look at the life of European films, what role do you think festivals play in the success of European films right now? In their whole life, what do festivals change for a film? So I'd like everybody to address that at some point, if you're willing. I don't know who's brave enough to go first.
May I? Yes, please. Thank you so much. Je crois qu'on peut d'abord identifier ce qu'est la valeur ajoutée d'un festival de manière générale pour différents acteurs, et ensuite voir en quoi cette valeur ajoutée est spécifique pour le film européen, compte tenu de son économie. Donc, pourquoi est-ce qu'on va en festival? D'abord, pour l'expérience d'utilisateur, pour le plaisir d'être un spectateur. Il y a une implication particulière dans l'organisation du festival, le fait de prendre son accréditation, de choisir son programme, qu'on ne trouve pas quand on va dans une salle de cinéma lambda. Il y a aussi une sanctuarisation du moment où on regarde le film, qui est très très particulière, qui est un élément d'expérience unique. Et puis, il y a aussi un partage beaucoup plus facile de cette expérience dans le cadre d'un festival que de manière générale. Donc, sur ces 3 points de l'expérience utilisateur, je crois que cette valeur ajoutée, elle est la même pour tous les films européens ou non européens. Là où ça devient plus intéressant pour le film européen, c'est ce qu'apporte un festival à l'équipe artistique. Pour moi, là encore, il y a 3 types d'aspects. Il y a la possibilité d'avoir un retour immédiat de la part du public, de la presse et des critiques. Il y a aussi la possibilité pour l'équipe artistique de faire connaître sa propre vision du film, là encore à la presse, à la critique. Et puis enfin, la possibilité de rencontrer d'autres créateurs et artistes. Et alors là, sur ce dernier point, je crois que ça commence à être un enjeu particulier pour le cinéma européen, qui est un cinéma métissé, un cinéma de brassage, un cinéma où, en fait, il est rarement purement national. Prenons simplement sous l'angle des coproductions, ça représente 45% de la production allemande, 45% de la production française, 15% de la production espagnole. Donc la possibilité d'avoir des artistes qui se rencontrent entre eux, que ce soit de manière parfaitement spontanée ou dans le cadre de forums de coproduction, là, on commence à toucher quelque chose qui est essentiel pour le cinéma européen, cette sorte de fertilisation croisée, de pollinisation, où on plante des petites graines comme ça en se déplaçant, et ça finit par faire de nouveaux films. Je crois qu'il ne faut pas négliger ce point-là. Alors ensuite, j'en viens au dernier type de valeur ajoutée, qui est probablement celui qui intéresse le plus de gens dans la salle, qui est ce qu'un festival apporte aux différents maillons économiques de la chaîne, de la value chain du cinéma. Alors là encore, j'ai trouvé trois types d'apports. On a parlé tout à l'heure de pouvoir voir en direct la réaction du public, et là c'est particulièrement important pour un film européen. Parce qu'on n'est pas comme dans les films américains pour lesquels on va faire des tests sur des pilotes, sur des petites séquences avec des panels de consommateurs. C'est pas comme ça que l'industrie européenne du cinéma est construite. On est encore sur une industrie de prototypes. Il n'y a pas de crash test. Le seul crash test, en fait, en grandeur nature, en conditions réelles, c'est le festival. Par ailleurs, on n'est pas non plus comme l'industrie américaine en train de faire des prequels et des sequels pour lequel le crash test en grandeur nature a déjà eu lieu avec le premier épisode. Donc, compte tenu de ce qu'est la nature du cinéma européen, la possibilité de voir en direct la réaction du public, elle devient vraiment essentielle. Ça, pour les films qui ne sont pas encore achetés, c'est une motivation extrêmement importante pour acheter le film. Et ce n'est pas un hasard si 3 des plus grands marchés de festivals au monde sont adossés... 3 des plus grands marchés du cinéma au monde sont adossés à des festivals, la seule exception notable étant le American Film Market de Santa Monica. Ça, c'est le premier point que je trouve très important. Le deuxième aspect essentiel, c'est les retombées médiatiques, évidemment. Là encore, on ne concourt pas dans la même catégorie avec les films américains en termes d'exposition. Non seulement nos budgets de production sont plus petits, mais nos budgets de distribution eux aussi sont plus petits. Pour prendre un exemple d'un film français, quand on rapporte les coûts de marketing aux coûts de production d'une œuvre, on est dans un rapport de 1 à 3 par rapport au film hollywoodien. Donc il est essentiel dans ce cadre-là de pouvoir bénéficier de l'exposition médiatique du festival en tant que tel. C'est l'effet red carpet, et je pense qu'il est déterminant pour des films européens. Et je crois que le dernier aspect, je vous prie de m'excuser d'avoir été un peu long, je vous promets, je serai plus court pour la suite, c'est la possibilité tout simplement d'avoir des recettes à la fois pour les screening fees pour les distributeurs et puis de la billetterie. Je pense qu'on aura l'occasion d'y revenir dans la suite de la discussion, mais de plus en plus, il est difficile pour les films européens de trouver un marché solvable en salle. Il y a plein de déterminants à ça. Mais en tout cas, quand on parle de films qu'on appellerait en France des films difficiles ou à petit budget, donc difficiles par la langue dans laquelle ils sont tournés, difficiles par leur sujet, difficiles par leur format, comme les courts-métrages. Voilà, ça, quand on parle ensuite de 300 000, 500 000 spectateurs qui viennent à un festival, eh bien pour ces films difficiles ou à petit budget, ça devient un vrai marché solvable sur lequel ils peuvent en fait exister et se rentabiliser. Et ça, c'est une particularité malheureuse, mais objective du cinéma européen quand on le compare notamment au cinéma américain.
Thank you. Ricky, do you agree with some of the economic points being made there?
I can say I agree.
Yeah.
No, it's very true. With my rusty French, I think I got the basic points. There is no doubt that for us as a sales agent, everything is about awareness. It's about visibility of the films in a market where you have so many films. To be selected for a festival gives the perfect platform to sell your films. And of course, it's a quality stamp, furthermore. And then it's a very important for us selling tool to have and to create hype around the film. And for the distributors, obviously it's a marketing tool to also, once they get out there in the cinemas, to attract the audiences by having the silver beer or whatever, you know, the film will win, that this can actually attract the audiences. So festivals are crucial to our business, no doubt.
And is that the bigger festivals more important to you if you get into Cannes and Berlin? Is that a very different experience than getting into Locarno or Ghent or Edinburgh or something
It very
smaller?
much depends on the film. Obviously, the bigger festivals like Berlin and Cannes are still the biggest. But you know, for example, Sundance and a quirky comedy can be amazing and just be a big success. And in Rotterdam, we have had some amazing experiences also for small films growing into big films distribution-wise. And now for genre films also coming up, you could have like Austin Fantastic Film Festival that we hadn't heard about 5 years ago. That suddenly makes our films extremely successful sales-wise. So you probably have in the range of 20 to 25 festivals that means something sales-wise, where the rest you could say are fantastic from a national point of view for the audiences, but selling-wise, thinking internationally does not mean the world of difference.
Barrow, do you want to? How do you think about?
First of all, I hope Dieter is doing well soon, because this is crazy time.
For him and for you, so thank you for being here.
Us. So and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, the amount of films that are out there that are screaming for attention is gigantuous. So being in a position where the combination of finding the right kinds of films and then creating that context which is beneficial for them, that's not now's crunch time for that, because obviously what Frederick said, that's all totally agree to, and what she said also, since the added value of the festival experience for the audience and for the industry is huge. But it's huge in two elements, I think. It's almost like a first testing base. It's almost like a research and development moment, that there's no test screenings. Even if there were, you still want to have that energy of a full room and a relationship between the film and that first audience, or even the second audience. And to be smart in creating the right context for the right films to shine is, I think, the magic of it all. If they have a film and they have to choose whether to go to Sundance or to Rotterdam or to Berlin, or to hold on and maybe wait for Cannes, etc., all those tactics are hugely important, because not every film works well in Rotterdam. Not every film works well in Sundance. So you have to be very specific of how you present that, and be, in the best case scenario, thinking even longer. Also thinking, I mean, for instance, we take films sometimes that we program for in collaboration with our distributors that have been in Cannes. Because they're still, the Dutch audience
still new to your audience.
They're still new to the audience. There's still a relevance for them to be launched. But for the international level, the world premieres are important, or the stuff that's really fresh, or something which is inspiring to the industry. We are, to be honest, in a hugely luxury position. For 45 years now, almost 300,000 visits at our festival, or more. It's quite a lot, which has enabled us to be very daring sometimes in our choice, and to say, you know what, we think Michaël Roskam, or he was in Berlin, or some other guys are pushing the envelope. Let's try and show their work, because we believe what they're doing is good. It may not even be the first film that makes money, or that has an economic value, but for all of us to be celebrating culture and celebrating European cinematic culture means also daring to find new grounds. And where else are you going to do that? Where else are you going to present something which is a daring adventure, if not at a festival? If the audience responds to it, you'll be keen to do his next one, and he'll get signed by Trust or someone else, and they'll do a new film. So to find that right combination is important. Not every film has to go on into the world and be a huge success. But the filmmakers that are involved with them, and the producers, and all the talents involved, they will be doing some other stuff. And let's say the curatorial value of the festivals in that respect is huge responsibility, actually.
So it sounds like you and your team are thinking beyond January, February. You're thinking, what's going to be this filmmaker's next film?
Oh, totally.
What's going to be the life of this film?
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone here knows that festivals like ours, as does Berlin, by the way, are very much involved in following the whole process. We sometimes even invest tiny amounts in script development just to be aware of filmmakers that are developing their next thing. making a film takes, often many years, and being involved in those films is important. There are now films going into Sundance, just yesterday announced that we are on the credits because we were involved in them, as is Berlin, by the way, or others, which is fantastic. And it's that kind of lengthy involvement in films which should not end at the moment you present the film and then say, now let the market figure it out. It's our responsibility also to say, okay, we selected this, we should be more involved in what happens afterwards.
Matthias, I'm going to put you in the hot seat, sort of building on that. Obviously, you're working at the European film market, which is the business side of the Berlinale. But do you think, we need to work in a certain way that the films have a certain life afterwards, or are you just aiding specific companies, or what's your sort of big picture approach to what you're doing at EFM?
I'd like to add something before I say something on that, and I'll elaborate on that a bit more, but I'd like to add something to what has been said already by Frédéric and Rigge and Bera. I think there's a system that has developed. We're here to celebrate Creative Europe Media 25 years ago. I know that before media, the European Film Distribution Office set up quite a new system, because there was an acknowledgement of European support being needed to get things going and not just focus on what's happening in Denmark or in Holland or in Germany, in France, in Spain, and so on. I mean, we've come a long way. I must say that I was not always part of it because I grew up in that system. I mean, I don't even know in any other system. We're celebrating that, but I think it's also time to wake up at the same time, because we have been setting up something, all of us having played a role in that, in a system that is still working for us, but we all know that the outside world has changed, audiences have changed, the way content and films are being enjoyed after festivals has changed as well. Festivals are beautiful and great, some of them smaller, some of them bigger, with all the advantages and disadvantages of that. But it's not a future model to just stick to that. And we all know that. We've been talking about that already, I think, for a long time, at least as long as I work in the industry. And I think the question is not as much like, okay, things are changing, and how can a film market that I represent here add something to that? How can a festival do that, or a sales agent, or any association working? The question is more, when do we start, and how do we help each other to start? Coming back to the EFM right now. EFM exists for almost 30 years. We have been trying to set up new initiatives where we say, okay, let's support the European industry to start with. It's an international market, everybody is there, but of course we see a responsibility to say, okay, the Germans, the French, the Italian, the Spanish, they're all very visible, they do things, they're very well represented. I'm not mentioning the other countries, I'm not forgetting them, but just to give 4 examples.
The Brits, right as you come in.
The Brits, of course. The thing is a bit more that we said, okay, how can we, as Frédéric said at the beginning, I mean, the outstanding thing of European cinema or the industry here is that people talk to each other, very simply said, and there's a way of exchange. That's, of course, what we foster. We're very good at that, that's fine. We do that here as well. We can improve that in the future. We'll all speak the languages better. We'll be even better to understand your French, Frédéric. We'll all be able to speak other languages, hopefully as well in the future. I think that it's not about like getting together and creating new experiences, or to have a market that is even better at connecting people, or having a festival where there's initiatives to bring films to audiences. It's more about like, how do we want to basically react to the world outside that is changing? And I think that for the market, for me personally, but also for the whole team in Berlin and for the Berlinale as a festival, that's a major challenge, because that's really difficult. I can give some examples, but I think we'll come to that later on in the talk.
Well, maybe let's talk now about what things you've been doing. I know you've added TV, for instance.
We added TV, which is one thing, which is not film, but we said, well, audiences are there, there's a market there, TV or episodic content is being sold in Berlin anyway. That's just one thing. Documentary is growing very quickly. That's also a thing that happened already before, but it's getting stronger and stronger. What I think, and what is the most exciting thing, is not the way films have been sold or have been shown in the past or until now, and they will be shown in 2017 again at the festivals. I think it's more exciting to see, okay, how can maybe festivals start working together? Maybe markets can work with sales agents or with distributors on programs that is not just like, okay, like in Berlin is the case, buy a space, we'll get you a badge, and whatever you want, we help to, we give you some like discount on the entrance and so on. I mean, that's not what we're talking about here. I think we should join forces when it comes to where do we want content to be seen after the market and the festival is over, apart from the cinema. Obviously, we work in the cinema industry, so the cinema plays a big role. Cinemas are are adapting, but as far as I know, cinemas are not getting much further at the moment than saying we want to give audiences an exclusive or premium experience in the cinema with bigger chairs, and if you want some champagne, you push a button and stuff like that. That's not a future model for me. I mean, that's not what will survive for another 10 years. So we need, I think, to have we need to be brave enough to say, let's sit together and let's shape the future together as well, not just wait what technology will bring us and how audiences will drift further and further away from the original way of watching cinema.
Barrow, I think Rotterdam's really been a leader in this area in terms of trying to work with the industry and sales companies to do VOD or simulcast during the festival across Europe. And maybe you can talk a little bit about future-proofing and where you see...
It's two things. It's not a coincidence that Matthijs and I are sitting here, and if he's telling about festivals and other parties should talk together, of course. But let me quickly give a slight brief of what we're doing on other festival elements already, or have been doing in the past, also with the support of media, I have to say, of course. In this theater last year, for instance, and next Sunday I'll be presenting in Paris, in Le Grand Action, our new EFF Live event for next year, which is the simulcast idea of presenting 6 films in 50 cinemas all over Europe, and actually a couple outside of Europe as well. I think Singapore, New York, stuff like that. Which is
it started 3 years ago? How long ago?
It's going to be the 3rd edition. And the nice thing here is, again, that we have, or maybe we've claimed, the idea of trying to expand on what we are as a festival and as a platform and as a partner for filmmakers towards distribution, towards experimenting with other kinds of distribution models. And I think we're only scratching the surface of what's actually possible there, because for in many ways, you could say, faced with the bombardment of, you know, multi-billion pockets of the Americans, sometimes we need to be more clever and putting the money there where we think culture-wise it's needed, which means giving freedom or taking independence and getting people in that are not in the same echo chamber as we are, that are not trying to do the same thing, but just quicker. Because in many ways we can be much more daring in refiguring the way we present films to audiences. Have them interact, have them be part of the chain, have a more direct connection to the audience and the filmmaker. We're only just scratching that surface. If we do EFF Live, where you have like you Twitter in your questions and they get answered on stage and they get streamed back to the cinema in Serbia or Curacao or whatever, that's just a beginning, but it's at least elaborating on the added value that festivals have to bring an experience, not just a film, but an experience with many people together and build on that. So we are very much involved in trying to also get other players at the table to say, this is our little glass bowl of what life looks like. Now let's shake this up and see what happens. And Matthijs and I and others, Copenhagen, are very much involved in getting an infrastructure for this, yes.
Interesting.
Oh, yes.
And Ricky, I know this is something that interests you as well, as how festivals can evolve and help distribute films, and is that ever a worry that a festival might take away the traditional value chain, or is it just, do you see it as a benefit of how things can work now?
Well, I think actually it adds value and creates awareness. But if I could just go back, it's interesting to follow also the conversation this morning, which is very much content-based and innovation and what are we going to do, and very few words about distribution, which of course will come later. And I think one thing that we do have in Europe extremely is quality. We make great films and we're very strong in storytelling. But are these films getting seen out there? No, not as much as we would like them to be, and it's actually dropping drastically. Obviously, Netflix being a huge partner here, and only, or not partner, but a platform distributing also European content, but only 15 to 20% of their platform is European content. And I think, when you think of the potential we have in each country with all the festivals, with the sales agents, with the production companies standing together and trying to work closer together, imagine the fan bases you have out there on the festivals. How many are actually visiting your festival, Thijs?
Berlin sells like 300,000 tickets.
It's incredible, and your festival is huge too. Imagine you have fans, you have ambassadors for European films. If you could activate those fans during the year, and not only during the whole or the period of the festival, that is a huge potential. And it's free marketing value. And that's what I find so intriguing if you can do that. Because the question is there an appetite for European films? Oh yes, big time. Is it available for the audiences? Not enough. And that's what we have to work closely together about.
And for some of these new models or new ways of working, is the market able to sort that out? Does there need to be public support either at the European level or at the state level to help with more of these entrepreneurial models? Do you need help?
I would say the more daring you want to be, the less you can just say, oh, let the market do it.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen. Because also in the previous discussion, okay, the small company, of course, well, maybe, or they get swallowed up by the big ones. But to be fruitful, to build an infrastructure where that can actually happen, that's where you should be investing in, because then you can let the quality take it on by itself. The moment you sit back and let the market deal with things, you fight a different fight.
Frederick, I wanted to bring you back in, because I know Unifrance also organizes its own festivals, like the Rendezvous with French cinema in some major cities, but also has been looking at online film festivals. And maybe you can share a little bit of what you've learned from those, and if you think there might be more appetite for online film festivals in the future.
With much pleasure. I think to answer the last question, I don't think there are too many festivals, and they're not killing the markets. Festivals are, in a way, an answer to the fact that there is no space available for certain kind of films. The fragile films that I mentioned previously, and as you can imagine, you can find all those different films, categories of films represented in the sections of the festival, usually short films, films for kids, and so on. So they're not definitely killing the market. And as organizers, we're trying to, festivals, physical and online, we're trying to develop, to expand the markets for our films. We pick up films that are not being sold yet, and usually we have a great experience in actually putting those films onto the market, be it spontaneously when the film is selected. Well, there is a higher chance that a local distributor might be interested in acquiring the rights. But we also organize our own markets on the margin of the physical festivals. This is what we've done, for example, in Japan. We expanded our local market to Seoul, to Korea. We've recently created, on the occasion of the Miami International Film Festival, where there are a lot of Latin American buyers. Well, we took the advantage of this festival taking place, and we created a local market for French films in the direction of Latin American buyers. So yes, we can expand the market, the slice of the cake with our festivals. And when it comes to online distribution, I couldn't agree more with what Ricky has just said. We have a potentially an incredible database and fan base that we have to stir and emulate. They are more easily reachable over the internet than over the screening rooms, which are filled with American productions. So this is basically one of the reasons why we devised our fully online film festival called MyEFF, which will be celebrating its 7th edition next January. And we have built a Facebook our Facebook page has been collecting 300,000 fans. We have an a YouTube channel as well, and it's really gathering up speed. And our aim now is to replicate this festival during the course of the year. We will try to stimulate our fan base more regularly during the year, keep the festival spirit, but use that incredible database to actually feed information to those fans. Yes, you're interested in French films or French-speaking films or European films, then you should watch out this one. It's going to a screen next to you, or it's available on Festival Scope or Festival Scope Pro. This is exactly what we are trying to do at the moment.
So you're not trying to hold those films back from traditional festivals. It's sort of an add-on that they would go into an online.
Absolutely. We have those physical festivals that we are organizing, 10 per year approximately. Of course, it's not the same size as Asperos Festival. We're talking about maybe 10 to 15 films and tens of thousands of tickets sold, so it's clearly not the same stake. But yes, we are, for those physical French film festivals, we use local platforms to replicate the physical festival with online screening rooms with a limited size. We are doing that either on our platform with partner platforms such as Festival Scope or local ones. And yes, it's an added value. It's a different way to relate to the festival. It's complementary.
Okay.
Well, it starts also with something very, very simple, which is the moment a film hits the cinemas in the Netherlands, for instance, that our marketing and publicity people help or work with the distributors to say, this was in Rotterdam. I mean, if we had like 500 films, of which half short, and that's also a very important element, by the way, but just the element of using the fan base, the people that have heard or felt what it was like to see the film, or have heard it from word of mouth, what it was like when it was screened at the festival, and then rekindle that spirit a couple months later or half a year later or whenever, is a very simple little thing to do. And to replicate that feeling of the festival element is key. To know that and this is where I think there's huge profit to be gained culturally, not just money, but also culturally, is to have those connections of other festivals, of networks of fans or audiences. You know, we used to think in these pyramids of one person deciding and the base broadening or something, but it's much more biological. It's much more networked with huge hubs. Hubs like of creativity and energy and people coming together at my festival. They move on to Berlin, the next one. They move on to Cannes. There's always this connection there. And if you can translate that to either an online platform or a physical platform which is recurring, you are enforcing those synapses of European interconnectivity, and all of a sudden those people will find those great movies that are out there, that have stories of value to tell, that tell our stories and not just something of a superhero transforming spit into whatever. Yeah. So that there's a lot to be gained there, but it also means that we need to somehow jump out of our own little swamp and realize that we have also been part of the problem.
I think that, if I can add something to that, jumping out of the swamp, I think that's really needed. And I think, I mean, why wouldn't we, apart from what you just mentioned, or you, Rick, as well, creating communities, making sure that people have other places to watch film as well. Yes, I mean, that's great, but I think why don't we also come up with ideas and let us inspire by people who have actually done that already? Because in many other fields, I'm mentioning when we talk about telecommunication, Or we're talking about the music industry that reinvented itself, or we're talking about the games industry that hardly existed 20 years ago and now is booming. I mean, in Germany, being one of the biggest game producers in the world, the Baltic countries, Scandinavia, a lot is happening there. Or we're talking about how the car industry is changing very quickly, and all of a sudden, the imagination of the car as a place where we can watch content, like in a plane, because we don't have to steer anymore. That's not so far away anymore. These people are visiting already in Berlin, they're buying content, and they're looking for content, they're approaching us. Or we're talking about, I don't know, African or startups from Europe or startups from Africa. We're setting up an Africa program in Berlin that's not focused on the film industry as we know it in Europe, it's focused on the film industry as it's setting up itself right now in Africa, meaning startups present themselves, they deliver energy to villages in Africa, and by delivering and making electricity available in Africa in very local basis, people start, well, they have a TV at home, they want to see Netflix, or they want to see other things, the things they see on Facebook that all their friends watch somewhere else in the world. So startups that deliver energy say, like, actually we want to start buying content because they trust us, they pay us every month, so why don't we just like deliver them series and films? That is the way I think people around us in the world are changing a lot. Bigger companies have changed, industry has reinvented themselves. So I would be very interested in saying, apart from having a Facebook community or starting our own channel or creating more events or having better cinemas, why don't we sit together with these people and say, like, so 15 years ago when the music industry, everybody said, like, what is the future going to be? Are people going to pay for an LP, or are they still going to go to concerts and things like that? I'm not saying that the system is always working very well, that was reinvented, but at least a lot of work was done. And I think when we look at that, and actually it's a time that I am actively working in the industry in the past 16 years, I have the feeling that in the film industry, in that sense, not that much has changed. We're talking about models that we try to pimp and to like look a little bit smart, and we do that every year at the festival. And Berlin has a great new thing, and then Cannes has a great new extra tent, and then Rotterdam does something new. We all do that, and it's great because we want to experience some new things. But the core of what we really want, we don't. I don't know why, and I don't have the solution as well right now here on this stage. But I think what Bear already said, I think it's time not to only sit together and say, like, okay, how can we change it? But I think it's time to get other people in our film building and like listen to them and see what they've been doing and see how we can get inspired by that and say, like, okay, so they basically made a model that works, or audiences or consumers are using, and they shape the way the world we live in today, if we like it or not. The film industry hasn't been doing that, and we're behind. So I think it's time to change that.
Yeah, I don't think the film industry has seen its Airbnb or its Uber or the total game changer. Do you think, how can the industry start talking to each other in a different way and bringing in new ideas? You said you don't have the answers yet, but how does that discussion start?
I don't have the answers. Sometimes people say, like, so you're running the European film market, so how's the market going to be? Or like, how will we all work in 5 years? I don't know. I mean, I have an idea about where the market is heading or how the market should adapt to things, or the industry. But what I think is, as said, sitting together and talking to each other, that's what we're doing here right now. I think it's good to invite new people to the table that are not part of the film industry but know how to reach audiences and know how to use new technologies, or can even suggest new technologies that we're not aware of. So that's one thing. I think it's clever, also on a European level. We're here celebrating the existence of a great European program without which European cinema would not exist the way it exists now. I think to think a little bit less on a national level or on a festival level, it's about time to do that. I mean, we should say, okay, let's benefit the industry, and let's not just benefit the market in village Y or the festival in village Z and so on. We should be catering a little bit more than that. I mean, apart from the fact that, of course, the industry is traveling from Rotterdam to Berlin to many festivals in between, and then Cannes and so on, we don't need to tell the industry what is going to happen next. The industry will have its own ideas. The only thing we can do is to say, well, how can we come up with a platform or a place where risks can also be taken, because in the end it's also about, you know, the idea is fantastic, but if you know that actually another day in your office because you're sitting here and nobody of your team can leave because otherwise you'll lose a lot of time working on making things work, there's a lot of risk involved to say, like, let's do everything else, or let's spend 3 months thinking about new ideas. And I think what is really needed is spaces for innovation. Innovation is used a lot in the last months. I'm curious what it's called next year on the 1st of December, but the words change. But we all know what we're talking about, and I think festivals should become more innovation hubs, where we help people to connect, to get a lot of input, and not to just go home with ideas, but to go home with the feeling, actually, if I want to develop my company in a new way, I can take the risk and I can share the risk with others because people will work together on it. And that's something I think we should start setting up, and that will come.
Ricky, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts, because I think, you know, most good sales companies have evolved. You don't just get the finished film, finish the poster, take it to Cannes. Can you talk a little bit about how Trust Nordisk is thinking of innovation and how you work across the value chain, really?
Well, I can say that you could say the picture has changed for us as a sales agent the last 5 years. From just being a sales agent, taking in a finished film, we're much more active with the content and actually developing content, not even from a script stage, but from an idea level. We have to be. We have to add value in order to justify being a distributor, simply. But also we are very interested in this new distribution form, what's going to happen in the future. And I think, you know, I think when I look at the film industry, also being part of it myself for many years, it's very conservative. It's like windows, and this is how we see films, and we see films on the big screen, and then it goes to, you know, a VOD platform, and then on television, you know. And I think we need to change a little bit that picture and take risks. I don't know why it is that the great new innovative ideas often happens in a garage somewhere with 2 geeks sitting having crazy ideas like, you know, Google or Uber or whatever, you know. I think it would be amazing, like you say, Matthias, to actually invite some of these crazy people into our business and start discussing what can we do. Yeah, because we need it. We need just to throw up the balls in the air and just see, you know, where the future leads us. And the thing is, the future is here right now, whether we want it or not. So we can choose to be part of it, or we can just, you know, sit and wait until nobody's watching European films. So we need to be extremely actively involved. And I'm happy to say, although I cannot say so much here on stage, that we're working on it a lot right now, and hopefully we'll be able to come out with some news within the near future. And we're also working actively with Berlinale on some new initiatives, and you guys as well. So I think just the fact that we're talking about the future and wanting to solve it, and also recognize that we cannot do it alone. We have to use all these great people out there that are ambassadors for European films. I think that's a big step.
Can I just add on to that crazy part, because I think it's true that there's a very almost conservative, fearful attitude of, oh my God, the things are changing and market rates shares are dropping, and that's good. That fear is never a good advisor in that sense. Whereas the element of the craziness, or let's say energy, creativity, that's where the fun part lies. And just getting some more of the craziness in. And if you, I mean, Michaël Roskam just before, you know, not getting anything paid for a long while and working on a script, etc. You have to be crazy to want to be in film anyway. So let's own it and then see where it leads us, rather than freaking out and saying, no, we need this and we need that. No, we don't. And in the creativity lies the fun. And if we've been doing that for 25 years, let's do that for 25 more.
Okay. I think we're almost out of time, but I wanted to wrap on a similar thought that, you know, let's not dwell on the fear that, oh, maybe the audiences will go to Netflix and they won't show up at the Pathé in Rotterdam when the festival's on. I don't think that's true. I'd love to hear from all of you, what excites you about how things are changing, or how things, I know we don't know exactly what things are going to look like in 5 or 10 years, but what do you see that could be great for the industry, that could be an exciting new change? Anybody?
Well, when we're talking about festivals, I'm seeing as a great challenge the relation to the audience, how it's going to evolve in the future. And I personally see it evolving in two opposite directions. The first one being that it's more and more, it's easier by the day to collect information on individual reactions to a film. I mean, now you have real-time information on the public feedback through SMS, tweeters, and Twitter accounts, and so on. And not in a distant future, we will have automated information about public reaction. I've heard that, well, I've actually seen that there are industry players who have devised something like, looks like, you know, a Kubrick's monolith, a black stone, black slab, which analyzes the reaction of the audience and on 6 rows, 20 faces, analyzed in real time through the pupils, the faces expression, to really get you information on how public is reacting. This is a bit scary, but this is really what's looking ahead of us. That's yeah. But at the same time, I think that the collective experience of festivals is being jeopardized in a way. And I'm personally fascinated by the way virtual reality is really the elephant in the room. It's completely redesigning the way we connect to the image, and not just as a user experience, but of course for cinemas, for festivals. How do you recreate this collective experience with masks and headphones? There are things being tested at the moment, festival of VR films, but my personal opinion is that the sense of ownership and collectiveness is going to be recreated differently, probably through massively interconnected gears. And I see that festivals may take in the future place through avatars. You will invite your friend virtually, you will see the avatar sitting next to you, and you will be able to see his reaction virtually on his virtual face to the films that you are going to see on your goggles. That's what excites me.
I understand why this chair is empty, because we can just place for something new.
He's got a special friend over there, yes.
I mean, the market in Berlin is situated in a beautiful museum, which is a bit of a symbol, I think. I mean, I love the building, Martin Gropiusbau, great place. I think it's also representative a bit for the fact that what we're trying to do in Berlin, and we were trying, Rick already mentioned it, we're trying to get those people out of the Berlin garages to have startups entering the market since 2 years. We're continuing doing that, we're expanding that also in 2017, soon to be announced. But I think the spirit of startups to sort of like rethink and basically say, and that's I think what the film industry should do as well, there's many things the industry is very good at. It was mentioned in other panels, Michaël Roskam just mentioned it, we are very good in storytelling, and the world needs us to do the storytelling because many of the new industries and content and good content is needed. That's something we can do. I think the trick is to say, well, let's not relearn, but let's at least get other people who do it much better at the moment sometimes with very different products to get them into that building, that beautiful museum building. Let's open the doors and the windows and see a bit like what happens. It might take like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but let's sort of see what happens then and open up a bit to new ways of doing things and also reaching new audiences. And for me, it's an exciting thing to do that. It might be a bit chilly in Berlin. That's why we always give scarves to people to stay a bit warm. But yeah, I think opening the windows in many ways is very important at the moment.
Great.
For me, it's much simpler. In about 2 months, I'll be walking on stage someplace in Rotterdam and addressing hopefully an audience of a couple thousand people, including some people here in this very theater, for when we do EFF Live, for instance. That's going to be amazing. And to walk from that to another hall where we do our Tiger Awards for short film, for instance, where people are pushing the boundaries in all manners, actually, that breadth of things, and then knowing Cinemart's about to arrive the next day, that's going to be crazy, because you'll have great films that can reach a huge audience that would never be that impactful if festivals weren't around to begin with. And it's also a place where people could can innovate and come up with crazy new notions that we don't know yet that we should be confronted with, whether it's with goggles or whether it's with celluloid or with a flip book. I don't care, as long as it's something that's new and fresh. That's what I'm very much looking forward to that, yes.
Okay, great. Enrique?
I'm just very excited that everything is possible with this new technology. I mean, we have some challenges, yes, but that's technology. We'll overcome that. But, you know, the potential is so big with the network that we have. And first of all, with the help of media, all the amazing content we have out there. So having the right distribution platform, working together, festivals, producers, sales agents, I think we have the power to compete, you know, with the big Americans.
Okay, you've got the power. Yes. I'm afraid we're out of time, but thank you so much for such a smart discussion about where things could be going, and I think it's going to be a fascinating few years. The good news is it's also time for lunch. So I think we'll thank our panel, thank you to the audience, and we'll see you at lunch.